Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study of the book of Colossians, and we're in chapter 4. And we're just going to look at verses 5 and 6. We're in the farewell section of the letter. He's conducted the business, he's given the advice, the instruction, he's delivered the theological truth that he's intended to with this letter. And now he's saying farewell. We mentioned last time that we were together 3 things we want to remember as we continue to read. One is this is a very long farewell section, the way the longer farewell section in the letter to the Romans is long as well. It's unlike any of the other letters, except for the personal ones, the ones to Timothy. These are long. These are long because he hasn't been here yet. He hasn't visited the city of Colossae, as he hasn't visited the city of Rome when he writes those letters. And so he's making connections with everybody he already knows, and he's sending greetings from the folks with him that know folks there. And so it will be longer. We also mentioned, not forget, the issue of Onesimus, the slave, Philemon, the Christian, the house church host. Philemon's slave Onesimus has fled. He had and run away. He has crossed paths with Paul in Rome. Paul has baptized him, and he is a brother in Christ. And Paul sends him back with the letter. He and Tychicus with the letter, and so the letter to Philemon is being read at the same worship service that this is going to be read publicly. And so that is looming over the things that he's saying here. And we also said the larger shadow looming over everything is Roman persecution, which has just commenced. That's why Paul's in the Mamertine prison. And that's why Paul will be shortly beheaded. And so this is happening to him now, and he is preparing them for what's about to happen to them shortly. And we said last time that the persecution in the province of Asia was particularly intense in this first wave of persecution. Okay, so he told them to pray, and pray for me. I need your help. I need you to pray for me that I'll know how to communicate better. And so let's read 5 and 6. And this is basically all he says to them about daily life in terms of, uh, keep your nose clean and your shoulder to the grindstone. And he says, verses 5 and 6, conduct yourself with wisdom toward outsiders, making the most of the opportunity. Let your speech be with grace, seasoned as it were with salt, so that you may know how you should respond to each person. Now, I mentioned last time that Peter is writing 1st and 2nd Peter at about the same time Paul is writing his prison epistles. And in 1st Peter, Paul addresses that letter to, among others, everyone who lives in Asia. So Colossae is in Asia. So they're going to get a copy of Peter's letter of 1st Peter as well. And it's going to be read there. And Peter is saying to them the same thing Paul is saying, but he expands upon it. Peter says, you're a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a people of God's own possession. Therefore, keep your behavior excellent among the outsiders, so that on the day of visitation, they may, when they observe your good deeds, glorify your Father who is in heaven. In chapter 3, verses 14, 15, he says, I need you to be prepared so that when anyone interrogates you about the hope inside you, he's talking about official interrogation by the Romans or by the local constabulary. When you're interrogated, be ready to give an answer, but with gentleness and reverence, sanctify Christ as Lord in your hearts. Um, and and uh, and so he's telling them the same thing that Paul is telling them here. Conduct yourselves with wisdom towards outsiders, making the most of the opportunity. Not any opportunity, but the opportunity. What is the opportunity? This moment when our faith is being scrutinized and called into question. This is not a moment of persecution to flee and hide. This is a moment of opportunity for us to speak. That's why he just said, I want you to pray for me so that I can speak properly, and I want you to speak properly as well. Let your speech always be with grace, seasoned as it were with salt. In other words, perfectly chosen, so that you may know how you should respond to each person. There's not one pat answer for everybody and for every situation. Think this through. Do what is right. Say the right words in the right way so that God is glorified, not so that you win your point or that you stick it to the man or that you expose everybody's cognitive dissonance to their disadvantage. This is not about any of that. This is about sharing the truth of Jesus. And that's what you need to be praying about for yourselves. And that's what you need to be doing. We have this opportunity in this moment when our faith is being scrutinized to tell the truth in such a way that it can be effective. So do that. That's what he says to them in verses 5 and 6. And that's what he says to us too. Let's never forget this is the primary concern, is to share the truth about Jesus in the most effective way. Okay, he's going to get to some housekeeping and some hellos and some goodbyes starting in verse 7. We'll look at that next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.